Okay, so wearing a white shirt today. It's not really a dress shirt. It's more linen. I got it today because I was having a bad day. Been having a bad day for a while. Something's wrong. Something's off in my system. So yeah, hold on. Jordan, stop it. If I let him like that, he'll like do the entire video. Okay, so I got the new shirt. I've got a white pocket square to go with the shirt. And yeah, today we're gonna be talking about God. And God have not always been good. There's been a lot of issues with the life that I've led, and today there is a blog blast going on. I've talked to you about blog blasts in the past. There's one happening today. It's called In the Name of the Father. In the Name of the Father is about my relationship with God, my history with God, and all that kind of stuff. So today, in preparation for that, or in order to go along with that, I'm going to read you a couple of things about blessings that God has given me. In the Name of the Father is hard to read sometimes. It's really hard to read. And it's going to be controversial because of how it ends. A lot of people won't like how it ends. Anyway, today on here, I'm going to read to you 3 blog posts that are very much about blessings that God has given me. In order to prepare you for the blog blast that is all about the darkness between me and God's relationship. And how I get through it. I'm also going to talk today a little bit about a book that I called Heaven, that I wrote. It's Heaven is well, we'll talk about it. In the last video, the beginning of the last video, you saw a series of colored pieces of fabric laid out on a table. Those are all of my pocket squares. There's a whole lot of them. When I bought them, there's a packet of 40. I really didn't need the 40 pocket squares, but it was cheaper than buying however many I did need, so I went with 40. Okay, so today is Tuesday. You're watching this on Friday. Today's Tuesday, and we are preparing the blog blast. So Becca is filming her show today, an episode from her show today, Hairbrush Poetry Jam, and she's doing that right now. Hairbrush Poetry Jam. She's filming that right now, and it's going to be brilliant. I'm really excited about it. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. It's a poem she wrote. She's going to read. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but you should check it out. I'll leave you a link. I'll leave you a link in the bottom. It's pretty cool. Okay, so what's going to happen is she's going to come in here, and she's going to be editing the Blog Blast posts while I'm doing my episode, and she'll need to read one to me, and then she'll go through and clean it all up, and then she'll need to read the next one to me, and all this kind of stuff. Now, with every blog that I put up a picture to go with the blog. I will show you the picture as we're moving through, and you can try to guess what the blog's about. Good luck with that. Okay, so I'm gonna read you. Well, let's first talk about heaven. In my world, there is a part where the moon explodes. That moment in time is called the escape. The beginning of my world started with a great God war. And during the God war, the original initial impact of the war, there were 7 gods of war on each side, and they came at each other across the skies with such force that they instantly died upon hitting each other and fused together. And their bodies rolled across the atmosphere until all of the limbs had been rolled off, and those form the moons. The escape is when one of those gods breaks free, and he comes down to the world and begins to build an army to take over the world. 15 years later, it happens again when the same moon explodes a second time, and the nemesis of the god, come on in, the nemesis of the god that had, what, come here, come in, hold on. Okay, so my son came and knocked on the door. He's a teenager. He's like, his picture taken. He doesn't want to be on my videos. Okay, so the book itself is about one of the shards of the moon. It slammed into the sky, and it went through the streets of heaven, flew out of the city, and collided with one of the castles of the gods. He's a god named Holith. He's the god of books and reading and libraries and history and learning. And his castle was completely collapsed. Well, when that happened, all the gods ran into their castles and they hid. They went into their castles, and their castles lifted up off the ground, and they were completely outside of, and they didn't help him. So the book in part is about a man who puts together a group of people from different religions that all live in this holy city. He puts them all together to go and save that god and fix the city itself, because there's a hole right through the middle of it and it's collapsing in on itself. So because the gods won't help, he goes and gets a group of people together, digs that god out of his castle, saves his life, and then figures out a way to put the city back together and fix the city. The group of people that he gets together, there's 8 of them in this group, and he gets together this group of 8 individuals, all from different gods, and they become known as the divinities. And the gods know that because the moon escaped, there's bad stuff going on down in the worlds, in all the different worlds, and they send the divinities down to fix all the different worlds that have been messed up because of the moon exploding. So that's what heaven is about. And basically, the thing that I had to explore when writing this book was, how do you create a heaven for multiple gods with multiple religions and have their people live together in peace? What I figured out was that there's no strife in heaven. None of the people will care anymore what they were struggling for and fighting for down in the world. The main character, his name is Grant, used to be a warrior judge for the god of justice called Tyr. And in the world, he had a nemesis who was a thief, and they were at each other all the time. And when they both ended up dying and they met up in heaven, they were nemesis. They knew each other better than anybody in the world, and they had this relationship with each other that, I mean, each one of them knows all their likes and hates. They have been working against each other all their lives, so they become best friends. The criminal and the judge that chased him all his life become best friends. There's this really cool scene where they're in this massive fountain, and there's all these coins in the fountain, and each coin has a different color, and each color is associated with a different god. And so these 2 men have rolled up their pant legs, waded into the fountain, and are picking up the coins and listening to them. Come on in, babe. And when they listen, do you have Peanut?
Oh, he was in the room with me, but I didn't bring him in here.
Rafe wants him.
Should I
He's going to bed.
Rafe?
I gotta say goodnight to him first.
Okay.
So they listen to the coin, and in the coin is a prayer. And if the person wading through the fountain likes the prayer they're hearing, they give it to a passing servant of the god, and that god gets that coin brought to them, and that prayer gets answered. Okay, so you guys are going to get to see something that people don't get to see. This is Peanut, and he was given this vest because he's a hardworking dog. He's an alarm dog, and every day he wears this vest, and every day at the end of the night when he goes to bed, I say goodnight to him and tell him how he did that day. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Okay, Peanut, good day today. Not too much barking. Gave some good reports. You got to keep doing that. Now, go downstairs and take your uniform off, and get in bed with your boy, and relax and get some sleep. And the more you relax, the more he can relax. And yeah, you're on it. You're tired, aren't you? Go downstairs, get some sleep, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Go on. Okay. So that's how it works. So these two men get into this fountain, and they're trying to outdo each other. The thief is trying to find the prayers that are most diabolical and most evil, and the priest, the priest of the judge, is trying to find the most righteous prayers and bring justice to there. And so it's just like a game that they play. When everything breaks down, when the hole is ripped through the floor of heaven, this guy takes it on himself to put order right, because heaven's streets are basically rioting. So he takes it upon himself to put heaven right. And he goes to his room. There's no sleeping in heaven, but he has a room. And in his room is his armor that he wore all his life. And he gets there with his nemesis. And his nemesis starts putting the armor on him, because in life, that nemesis had to memorize that armor, learn as much as they could about that armor, so that they could figure out how to get a blade through that armor. So the nemesis knows the armor very well and starts putting it all on and everything. It's a very cool scene. So that is basically what the book Heaven is about. It's part of what the book Heaven is about. Sadie, leave it. Sadie, leave it. It's part of what the book Heaven is about. I'm going to be reading that book tonight. I have to read everything I've written for the second act. I have to read it all so that I can start writing again, because I haven't written anything that's in a very long time. It's driving me crazy. And I've gotten away from it so long that I don't remember exactly what was happening. So anyway, I have to go back and I have to read Heaven. I have to read Prince of Slaves. I have to read Fist of the Tyrant. All the books that I've written for the second act so far, I have to read them to refresh my mind, to see where I want to go and what directions I want to go in the future. So I'm going to start doing that. It's an awful lot of reading. Let's see, there's 7 books, and they're all pretty long books. It's more than 7 books. It's like 8.5 books. They're all pretty long books. I have a lot to read. But either way, that's starting. So hopefully I can do some fantasy soon. Okay. Now, since today is the blog blast for In the Name of the Father, and there's a lot of negative things that happen in that blog blast, I'm going to take the time to read 3 examples of times when I was blessed by God. We're going to start with a chapter in Normal Street called Wedding Part 3 that you may have heard already. I'm going to read this. I'm going to read The Eldest and the Younger. Like I said, you may have heard these already, but not in this context. You haven't heard them in the context of blessings of God. I'll read each one and talk a little bit about each one. And then what's going to be happening as I'm doing that is she's going to be over here and she's going to be cleaning up. Becca's going to be cleaning up blogs for the blog blast that's happening today. So what she normally does is she reads the blog to me and then she cleans it up. And when she's done cleaning it up, I pick a picture and she posts it. She's got to put all the tags in. She's got to put all the links in and all that kind of stuff. And then she reads me the next one and we go from there. So while I'm doing this, we're also going to be reading blogs for the blog series that's coming up today. So today is all about In the Name of the Father. And hopefully it will prep you for what's going to happen. This video, unless there's some tragic uploading incident, this video is going to be posted at noon on Friday. The first In the Name of the Father blog will be posted at 2 on Friday. Then one will come out every 2 hours and 15 minutes until I think it's 5:45 on Sunday. Don't quote me on that, but that's what time I think the last one comes out. So anyway, that's what we're gonna do. She's gonna read a blog to me probably right now. And then while I'm reading this, she's going to be cleaning up what she just read to me. So I'm going to take a break and she's going to read to me and then I'll come back and that's how we're going to do this episode. Okay, so she read the first blog to me. It's called Sasquatch Part 1. Sasquatch Part 1. And here is the image I chose, right here. Okay. So that's in a section of the blog called In the Name of the Father. All about God. You try to make sense of the image. So I'm going to read to you part of Normal Street that I may have or may have not read to you before. It's called Wedding Part 3, and this is one of the blessings that I got from God. Wedding Part 3 takes place in 2005. I woke up to donuts and D's instructions. He looked at me and smiled. I got married 3 months ago. I know, I gave you a kick-ass toast, I said. I remember. Listen, it was better than your best man's toast. I don't think he'll ever forgive me for that. I need you to shut up right now, Dee said. I know what you're facing today. I have it all figured out. I will get you there, but you have to do exactly what I tell you to do when. He reached into his pocket. Do you have the ring, I asked? He pulled it out and showed it to me. How did you know I would ask about that? I said, pointing at it. I know what you need today, he said. I laughed. Okay, I'm all yours. Now I have the entire thing timed out. Do what I say when I say to do it. Done. What comes first? Donuts, he said, pointing at the box. Just one. Can I eat later? My stomach. Later, you'll be wearing a tux. You eat it now, Dee said. You have to trust me. And I did. I trusted him completely. I grabbed my donut and started eating. I want to talk to Becca, I said. I already called her. She's fine. She's up. She's eating and she's getting ready. She doesn't need anything and is surrounded by people ready to give her anything if she develops a need, Dee said. She says hi and that she loves you and can't wait to see you. I finished my donut. Bathroom. We have to shave your head, he said. We shaved my head and I took a shower at his command. When I walked out, he had my boxers waiting for me with a t-shirt. I dressed in it and walked out of the bathroom. Second donut now, he said, pointing at the box. I ate a second donut. Now go get dressed. Do not put on your tux coat. When you're done with everything else, call me in and I will put it on for you. I can manage. I said, damn it, Jesse, listen, if you try to put it on, you will pull the rest of your clothing untucked. The shirt will come up, the vest will be wrong. You gotta trust me, man. I got this. We got dressed and all my guys were waiting for me outside when I got there. Some of them had stayed at the resort, but they were all standing outside waiting for me when I came out. I hugged them all and they all told me how great I looked. I was wearing black on black on black on black on black. Black shirt, black vest, black coat, black tie. My coat was long in the back and tapered on the sides. It made room for the bastard sword strapped to my side, the black grip and the brass crossbar and pommel. It swung at a perfect height, and I felt more real with it on at that moment than I ever had. All of the guys had their tuxes and swords. They all looked amazing. Now every sword hangs different, and every type of sword needs a different kind of frog. A frog is a system of leathers that holds the sword to the belt. I had gotten the proper frogs for every different kind of sword, but Berg was not happy with his. Berg wore a Viking longsword. It was perfect for him, but it hung perfectly vertical. And when he had it on and his tux jacket on, it rendered the sword invisible. The sword hung straight against his thigh, and it looked like he was the only groomsman without a sword. He was forced to pull the coat back and grip the handle, making it obvious that he was carrying it. He thought this uncomfortable and annoying. How could I tell him that to me it was comforting? All day I watched him grip the handle of his sword as he walked around the wedding. He seemed ready to cut anyone in half if they stepped out of line. The only complaint he had about the wedding was the one thing that helped me stay calm all day. We drove to the lake house. Belle went out in front of me. He found Flower and told her I had arrived. Pause. Everybody freaked out when I showed up. Everybody went running up to Becca. At least 4 different people ran up to Becca and was like, he's here. He came. He showed up. He actually came. And she's like, oh, of course he did. It's his wedding. They didn't think I would show up. They thought I was going to stand her up at the altar. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They had a lot of faith in me. These two people, this groomsman and bridesmaid, would have conversations like this all afternoon. Me and Becca had decided that we did not want to see each other at all until the very moment she was walking down the aisle. So we elected Belle for my side and Flower for hers to go ahead of us all day, announcing the other was moving from one place to the next, and to make sure that she or I were properly hidden. Job had a task that he performed very well. Every time I stuck my hand in his direction, he put a cigarette in it. He lit it, one for me and one for himself, and Belle would run, tell Flower we outside smoking, and the two of us would have a cigarette. I asked him at one point how many cigarettes he had. I was smoking more than I usually did, and I was concerned I'd run out. He reached into 3 different pockets and pulled 3 unopened packs of cigarettes. He shook the one at me that he had. You're set. I'm only smoking when you do, and I have a carton in the car. Do not worry about cigarettes. I have you covered. All my guys were told black shoes. I didn't want them to have to wear uncomfortable shoes, so I told them to pick out their shoes themselves. Belle wore dress shoes, Dee wore Doc Martens, Job wore Crocs, Berg wore Doc Martens, and Robert wore moccasins he made by hand the night before. They wore black shirts with white vests and a black coat with a white tie. Dee wore a black shirt with a silver vest and a black coat with a silver tie. At one point, Plan came into the house where we were, and she grabbed her, and I grabbed her in a hug. She wore a traditional Indian sari with her silk scarf bound around her head. She looked like an exotic gypsy, and she grabbed me and hugged me and squealed when she said that soon I would be her brother. Bliss was the matron of honor. She wore an Asian dress. Chanel wore a wedding dress. Flower wore a formal dress, and Cam wore a Native American dress she had sewn herself out of white doeskin. Every girl had arranged her scarf differently. Every one of them wore white. They carried black fans instead of flowers. Food bowl and water bowl were clanking together. We took pictures. Our photographer was also a member of SCA. So he had taken so many pictures of swords and men carrying them. When he heard that we were having swords at our wedding, he went nuts. He had all kinds of ideas for pictures, and we started taking all of them. We took pictures for almost an hour doing poses like me with my back to a groomsman facing off against the rest of the wedding party. We did one where we had our swords driven into the bench and we were looking across at the lake at a target we were plotting against. It was a blast. At one point, Hymnal stomped out of the house. The women were in, and she snarled at me. She pointed her finger. You've done enough pictures now. It's time for the bride and bridesmaid to do pictures. Go, get out of here. Well, the only problem with that was that the women were not even close to ready. Most weren't wearing their dresses yet, and Cam hadn't even shown up. With the swords and the playing, Hymnal was just too irritated to allow my groomsmen and I to go on much longer. They didn't think the sword thing was a good idea. They talked a lot of trash about the swords. So, yeah, they were not happy when we were doing that. I didn't fight it on her. I took it on the chin. I let this woman yell at me on my wedding day. When my men and I retreated into the house, Flower showed up to tell us that Hymnal was dead wrong and we could take our pictures as long as we wanted to. Becca and her girls were not close to ready. They ended up taking pictures at the resort. I stood at the end of an aisle that intersected the middle of the main aisle. I waited there while everyone walked and got into position. When Becca came, I met her at the halfway point to make a fool out of myself. I'd come up with an idea. What if I presented her mother with a flower when I took Becca's arm? Bliss made a velvet black pillow and I got a large, beautiful white flower and I met them at the middle of the aisle. I was mic'd and I was going to get on one knee, present the flower and say something flashy. Becca told me what was to come and warned me that I should write the speech before the moment, but I'm better at ad-libbing and I told her Smear Lord of Ire would not know what to say. She tried to warn me again, but I brushed her off. When I got through that day, I dropped to my knee. Dee showed up with the flower on the pillow, and I looked up at her mother to say my beautiful words. I looked at Becca out of the corner of my eye, and her warning came to mind. She was, in fact, too beautiful to think in front of. She braided her hair in dozens of braids after dyeing her hair black. We decided instead of a veil that she should wear a traditional Egyptian headdress we had found made of white beads. She glowed. I'd never seen anything like it, and the dress that we bought in '97 fit her perfectly. It had a cutout heart in the middle of her back that at that moment I could not see because of the sheer shawl she wore. I will stare amazed at that image for the rest of my life. Smear shows it to me when things get dark at my desk and I need life blown back into me. Catherine stood up for me. Her leash was held by Job, and she was dressed in a glittering collar. He kept a steady stream of tiny treats going to her with pauses every 5 seconds. She sat looking at him at attention while the ceremony went on. Bliss had Morgan, but she was stingy with the treats, and he was not having it. He whined and he pawed and he whined some more. She gave him a treat every few minutes, and finally, in his frustration, he came to us. He laid down beside Becca and grumbled out his complaint. We took communion with a chalice that Dee had given me the night before. It was a decorative one made of pewter and depicted the Archangel Michael defeating Satan and tossing him from heaven. He gave me the cup without ever knowing we were taking a communion. Everything just worked out like that. We did the tasting of the temperaments. Becca had found this ceremony during her research. The variety of tastes that we were to eat before we said our vows just symbolized the different flavors of marriage. We ate something spicy, something sweet, something bitter, and something bland. She scooped her something spicy. I did a cautious dip. The music was played by a friend of mine from high school and Flower's husband, Doc. They sounded perfect. She came into Can You Feel the Love Tonight by Elton John, and we walked out to Drops of Jupiter by Trains, played by our two-man band. At the resorts, there were a lot of pictures to be taken. There was a massive hall filled with 100 chattering people. Becca realized she had lost her fan. It was black and gold and gorgeous. It was her bouquet, and she had it put it down somewhere without realizing it. She came to me frantic, but I had no idea where it was. I walked up to a capable person and I grabbed him by the shoulders and looked him in the eye. What do you need? Someone said. Becca can't find her fan and we need it for pictures. He was no one official, just a guest that I had faith in. That's not exactly true. during the wedding, we had 5 people stand up and read something. We never told them what to read. We just we told them to read something that meant something to them. And they did. And he was one of those people, and he read the meaning of the word namaste. It was beautiful. Tigress read that day. She came to me frantic afterwards because she had messed up one word, one single word, a single word in her long reading, a word. However, in this particular sense, it's a pretty important word. It's a famous reading. I think it's from the Bible. Yeah, it might not be. It might be a poem. I don't remember exactly. But it's talking about love. I was talking about hate. And the line is, hate fades. And then it goes on to talk about hate for a while and lead into love. But when she read it, she read love fades. And there was a video camera going. It's on it's on DVD. It's actually there. She read the whole thing, and then I think she sat down and Linus looked at her and said, "Love fades." Something like that happened. I made up that part, but anyway, she came to me and she was frantic and she was just like, "Oh, I messed up your whole wedding," all this kind of stuff. And I was like, "It's okay, it's okay. Everybody knows what you meant. It's totally okay."
Yeah, I've got the next thing ready.
You've got the next thing ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll be right back. She's gonna read me the next one. Okay. She read to me the next one. It's called Brother Faith.
Called Man of God.
Man of God. It's called Man of God. And this is the picture for it right here. So good luck there. Misty Bell and Chalice grabbed me at one point. "You have to come see this right now." I asked Becca if I could take off for a moment, and she said, yeah. They were doing family photos and bridesmaid photos, and I had time. I ran off, and this group of people took me to the Crystal Ballroom. It was dim, with little or no lighting save the white lights that the high table was draped in and the lights of the stage. They'd put a dance floor in the middle of the room and surrounded it with guest tables. Above our head hung the family banner. Becca in the planning had created a family crest for us, and it hung above where we would sit, draped with a long white sash. The cakes were perfect. One for her was a yin and yang cake. Then we had a groom's cake that was made of wet Rice Krispie treats. It was a castle with a dragon on top and a peanut butter whipped cream moat. The castle flew our crusts. The tables were set with black cloths and white napkins. The tables were not numbered. There were 9 tables, and we chose a different white flower for each one. At the opening of the room, there was a table with name cards lined up by a flower. That was your table. The weapon stand was waiting with a ramp leading to it and a ramp leading away. Everything was gorgeous. Everything was exactly how we planned it. There was a kink right as we were about to do our entrance into the ballroom. The wedding coordinator came up to us and said that for insurance reasons, they had to take the swords out of the room after we had them placed. Becca snapped at them that they would do no such thing. "We will place them in a closet nearby so that no one can touch them or get to them during the party," the man said. "We told you this was a deal breaker, that the swords would never leave our sights, that no one would ever touch them. We want pictures and want people to be able to come and look. You are not taking them away. We have a contract. No one fucks with the bride on her wedding day, insurance or no insurance." The funniest thing was the entrance. When the wedding party, the funniest thing was kind of the entrance, but this is different. So Robert had a tomahawk, and on the sword stand, of course, there's no place for a tomahawk. So he had grabbed a small piece of wood and set it on a table. And what we were supposed to do is walk in and stab the tomahawk into the wood, and it was gonna be hanging there, chunked into the wood. Well, he walked in and he stabbed it, but he hadn't gotten a green piece of wood. He had gotten a piece that had been cut a long time ago, and it was very hard, so the tomahawk wouldn't go into it. And it was like bam, 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 and me and Becca were like, "What in the fuck is happening in there?" And then finally we heard clunk, and he had tried 3 times to get it to stick in, and finally just set it down. He was so embarrassed. Anyway, what's written here is the funniest thing was the entrance. When the wedding party walked in, they stood behind their chairs waiting for us to arrive. When we all got there, we all sat as one, but before we did, every groomsman wearing a belt, a frog, and sheaths took their belts and frogs and sheaths off and dropped them on the floor behind their chair. It sounded like thunder. It was so loud. The hollow risers that the table had been set upon echoed loudly, and everyone jumped. We ate our salad course, and our guitarist came out with a single chair in the middle of the dance floor. As we watched from our risen chairs, and on his guitar, he performed Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. It was breathtaking. It felt to us as though we were royalty, being sang to at court by a gifted bard. At one point, the coordinator approached Becca and asked if everything was as she wanted it. "Everything is good," she said. "It's going well." "What do we have to do to make it perfect?" he said. She laughed and she said he was right. It was perfect. We danced our first song, and at the end, without any choreography or planning, we performed an impromptu flourish and bow. I spun her out facing one side of the room, and she curtsied him, and I bowed. I took her in, and without planning it or even knowing what I was doing, I spun her out again. This time she was facing the opposite side of the room, and we did a curtsy and a bow. We danced To Make You Feel My Love, the Bob Dylan version. Karaoke was immense. It took over everything. My bride got on stage and rapped Lose Yourself by Eminem. Belle and Berg and I got on stage and sang You Never Even Call Me by My Name by David Allan Coe. I sang Born to Be Wild with Job, and Lioness and Tigers got up and sang Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. I joined them for a while, but Dolly's out of my range and it was just coming out, chicken scream, so I walked away. I danced a mother dance with Tigers and Lioness's mother, who I will call the Queen of Cats. She has been there for me all my life and sided with me on all of it. I danced half the dance with her and half with Dee's mother, another powerful woman from my life who always backed me and was nothing but kind and loving to me every day she knew me. When we got back to our suite, we were too tired to open the care package they had left us, too exhausted to light the romantic candle they had set out, and too sleepy to break open the champagne they had given us. We had our wedding night that I'm too much of a gentleman to tell you about, but blew my mind, and we collapsed. We slept the sleep of the weary. We slept the sleep of the victorious. Okay, so I did a video on here not too long ago. That was, I forget what it was called, but it was basically a anniversary thinking. It was an anniversary gift to my wife, and I read this. So you guys have heard this recently. I want to talk to you about the next day, because the next day we got up and we went to the lake house. We had Becca's aunt take all of our wedding gifts to the lake house, and we got there. The tattered remains of a collapsed Rice Krispie castle sat on the table. By tattered remains, I mean people had, with their hands, ripped chunks out of it. It's pretty barbaric. I did the exact same thing. We had a bunch of family sitting around and all these presents, and we sat there and opened them all. And I wanted to open them at home alone, where everybody wasn't just sitting here watching what we were opening. But yeah, that didn't end up happening. We got married October 8th. We went on our honeymoon November 5th. We took a train with a sleeping car and everything. We took a train out to Montana. And the whole place was closed down because of the day. I mean, it's November. Not much is going on. It's supposed to be there. We're supposed to be there during the summer.
Or the winter. We were right in between this before the ski season started.
Yeah, we weren't there with the ski season either. We got there. We were pretty much alone. The guy that checked us in was a really weird guy. Short black hair, kind of small. Lean. And he just started talking about Halloween, which is kind of cool because it is Halloween. He started talking about Halloween. He was super excited because I guess I have a big Halloween celebration downtown. People come in from all over the place, and they go down to they have like this parade, and then they have this big outdoor party in town, and it's this whole big thing. And he told us about how he is famous at that party, and people come to see him because every year he has the same costume and he has the same impression, and his impression is perfect. He was very, very proud of this costume. When I tell you what the costume is, you're going to be able to picture this guy perfectly. Do you remember this, honey?
Not very well. I'm
Okay.
listening, so I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember what happened.
Every year, this guy dressed as Pee Wee Herman.
Oh, that's right.
He dressed as Pee Wee Herman every year, and he was so proud of his Pee Wee Herman costume that he stands there. He comes out from around the desk. We're tired. We've been traveling all day. We just want to get in our room. It's our honeymoon. We just want to get in our room. This guy is standing here and he's doing his Pee Wee Herman impression with the laugh and the face and the arms, all of it. He's doing this whole Pee Wee Herman impression, and he's really good. And he had a lot of lines, and he had, this whole thing memorized that he said all night long when he was at this outdoor party. And he did the whole thing for us. It was very cool. It's very, very fucking weird. And it set the tone for the entire trip. Everything was weird because everything was empty. There was nobody there. So it was all very weird. I wanted boar. I wanted to eat some boar. And we found a restaurant that served boar, and by the time we got out there, the restaurant was closed. We went driving up into the mountains. Saw a couple of elk, and that was cool. Got to a certain point where they're like, it's probably a good idea for you not to go past this point, as you are up in the mountains in November. And so we turned around and came back down. We went horseback riding. And we saw the mountains from the mountains. I remember there was this one place we pulled over, and I don't remember why. And we took this picture. There was a lake, and it didn't have sand. It had huge river rocks. The lake was very clear. There was a reflection of the mountain in the distance in the lake. The lake was very still, a lot of forest around it. And this right here was the face of God. Maybe not his entire face, maybe just his jawline. I don't know. It was a gorgeous picture of what had been created for mankind. And I stood in front of it and I stared at it. I stood in front of it with a woman that I loved, and I was aware that this was God's creation, and I was apathetic to it. I wasn't in a place where I wanted to see God in my life. I wasn't in a place where I was prepared to wrestle with that. Anyway, we had a really great time. She had dyed her hair black for the wedding and hadn't dyed it again. Her hair's originally brown, and she's a brunette. So right up the middle roots, there was an inch on each side that had grown out that was brown, and the rest of it was black. We knew we had to do something about that. So there's a picture of us standing on some viewpoint with Becca's roots showing because we hadn't re-dyed her hair yet. And here is a picture of that. Ignore how big I am. Ignore how big I am. Just pay attention to her hair. Don't look at me at all. Pay attention to her hair. Let's laugh at her, not me. And there's a picture of that right here. So I remember one day during the honeymoon, we went into the bathroom and we bleached her hair and we dyed it blue. It's a beautiful blue. Made a big mess. There was dye on the floor. I'm sure they got it up. But yeah. Then she had blue hair. I'm gonna look for a picture of her during our honeymoon with blue hair. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find one. I will, if I can find it, I will put it right here. Are you looking at it, or are you looking at me doing a finger thing? We'll see. Anyway, hopefully I can find that for you. So this day of this wedding here was the first true and overwhelming proof that I had that God was still working in my life, even if I wasn't working with his, even if I wasn't going to his church, even if I wasn't, he was still working in my life. I'm going to read you the next pure sign of God's love of me right now in a piece from Normal Street called Eldest. I may have read this last season. I don't know, but this is the birth of my firstborn son, Rafe.
Trying to start reading it. I have this next one ready at 13.
Okay. She's got the next blog ready. When is this one coming out?
This one is just going to be coming out Saturday night at 5:15 Central Time.
That's not right.
Friday night at 5:15 Central Time.
Friday night at 5:15 Central Time.
Got my dates wrong.
You'll hear this one that I'm about to hear right now. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so she got the numbers wrong. That one is called Camelot 1, and it is not coming. It is coming out at 4:15, right?
No, hang on. Which one? This one that I just read you is called Camelot Part 1, and it's coming out at 6:30 on Friday.
6:30 on Friday.
Yeah, it was the other one, Man of God, is coming out at 4:15.
6:30 on Friday night. Expect Camelot 1. And this is the picture I have chosen right here. And if you can guess what it's about before you see it, based on that picture and a title Camelot Part 1, I really don't want to know you. You've got a very strange mind. If you can guess perfectly what that's about. Okay. Anyway, all right. So I'm going to read the next one for tonight's readings. It's called Eldest. Takes place in 2006. And this is about Rafe. Christmas 2005, and me and Becca have opened all of our presents, and we look around the house. We look at the tree. We look at each other, and we can feel it. There's a gaping hole here. Something is missing from our lives. Someone. We went to Becca's parents for Christmas and told them our intent. Mother pulled Becca aside and told her that a kid was a bad idea. What if he leaves? You'll be a single mother. And then where will you be? Becca told her she was being stupid and blew it off. When we were packed and ready to leave, Hymnal was taking a nap, and we went into our room to say goodbye. Becca talked to her enough to wake Humble just a bit, and I walked in. I patted Hymnal's back, and I said, next time you see your daughter, she will be pregnant. Did I just say Humble? I said Humble. I'm going to read that paragraph again. Becca told her she was being stupid and blew it off. When we were packed and ready to leave, Hymnal was taking a nap, and we went into the room to say goodbye. Becca talked to her enough to wake Hymnal just a bit, and I walked in. I patted Hymnal's back and said, next time you see your daughter, she will be pregnant. I chuckled and went to leave. Why does it have to be you? She said. She was half asleep. She had muttered the statement, but it was clear enough. I walked out of the room, and I let it slide. I would get really good at letting things slide. In late January, it was official, and I went to Stephen. I'm going to be a father, I said. Congratulations. What if I'm a bad father? What if I'm not supposed to be a father? You're going to be a great father, he said. This is my therapist, Stephen. How can you be so sure? Because I raised you, Stephen said. And he had. He had torn off every scrap of teaching that had come from either side of my family. We had examined it, and we had decided if it was healthy or not. We cleaned it up if it was and reapplied it to my life. If it was unhealthy, we tossed it out and looked at how to replace it. He had undone every bit of mess that my family had made of me, and now I stood before him clean and ready. We went to the hospital to visit some friends we'd met in baby class. The little girl had just been born, and when we got into the elevator to go back home, Becca's contractions began. They went strong for hours, and we called our doula, and she rushed to our side. We stayed at our house for a few more hours until the doula told us it was time, and we headed for the hospital. For those of you who do not know what a doula is, I will spell it out for you very simply. They are a godsend. They are angels straight out of heaven sent to save the sanity of a birthing mother. A doula is a birthing coach. They know the childbirth inside and out and have been at over 100 births by the time they get their certification. They know all of the little things that the parents are never told. They can talk to the doctor about the technicalities and explain it all to the parents. They know the best positions to put the mother in while she's in labor, and then they know exactly where to massage at what points in the process. We hired a doula. I'm not even going to change her name. She deserves to get the credit for what she did. Her name was Cheryl, and she would not have made it, and we would not have made it without her. She was infuriated when on the way to the hospital, we stopped at Taco Bell to hit the drive-thru. She stomped up to the car to yell at us and tell us we needed to get moving. And we asked her if she wanted anything while we were getting dinner. She stomped back and patiently waited for us to get our food. Then we drove to the hospital. No one tells us what to do. We're warthogs. You're probably wondering why I just said we are warthogs. I'm gonna tell you about the warthog thing. I promise. I'll tell you at the end of this reading. Don't let me forget to tell you about the warthog thing.
Okay.
If I forget to tell you about the warthog thing, it's Becca's fault. When we got there, there was a lot of waiting. The labor was going slowly and not progressing as well as we wanted it to. Becca was committed to a natural birth, and so we waited. She was in labor for 18 hours before they gave her an epidural and set her to rest. Rafe was not close and she was suffering. We settled in for a wait and Cheryl started to massage. She got water. She talked and hummed to Becca. She massaged some more. Becca slapped as her body contracted in while she slapped Cheryl massaged. 24 hours into labor, Rafe was not close and the alders were getting worried. The nurse would come in every hour, check on the dilation, and tell us that we had moved very little. They would ask if we wanted to do a C-section, but Becca was committed to a vaginal birth, so we sent them away every time. When we hit the 30-hour mark, Guardian lost his cool for 1 complete second. The nurse told us that in that hour we had not dilated at all, and Guardian leapt to his feet and looked at her and snapped out, "Do your damn job and help my wife!" He sat down instantly, and apologized. When at the 37-hour of labor, they told us it was time to start pushing. I went crazy. I lost track of myself and I was suddenly in many different parts of the room at once. I looked around to see Guardian standing beside Becca. Shade was holding her other hand. Shadow was sitting in the corner of the room, rocking back and forth. And crying. Child wept. Lenore was giggling. The one they had once called Zombie was giggling and hopping up and down. Servant was praying in the corner on his knees. Assassin stood close to the nurse with a blade in his hand. I looked around the room and I looked at Becca and I groaned. As I looked up and ripped the ceiling and the roof off of the room, I brought rain, a cool ceiling rain that patterned on everything and everyone. The room began to glow, and with a wave of my hand, the glowing room began to pulsate with the sound of the heart monitor. The linoleum floor I kissed, and grass lifted in a wave. I heard laughing. And the one who follows me everywhere was behind me. I looked at her and she peeked out at me from her green hair with her pink eyes, and she smiled her thick lipped smile. Her wings fluttered in the air, too small to support her fattened belly, but what cause do we have for sense and physics where we live? She's beautiful, my fellow traveler said, looking at Becca. Will she be okay, I wonder? She will be fine, I said. She's more powerful than me. She's more beautiful than you. And my wife does not know how to fail. What will he look like? I asked my follower, and she giggled. He'll look like his father, she said. She always knows things like this. He'll look like me? No, you fool. God, no. He'll look like his father. He will look like Assassin. He will have the temperament of Guardian. He will know the ability and calm of Shade. And he will love like only your woman can. My green wanderer laughed when she smiled at me and said, want to stay and watch? I have to, I said. I am transfixed. Bewitched, she said. Same thing. When the pushing began to get tough, it was unsettling how unprepared the staff was. And push. 1, 2, 3. You're doing so good. You're doing so well. Keep going. Keep pushing. And Becca was getting agitated. Shade could sense it. He could tell something was wrong, but he didn't know what it was or until the next push, they did it again. And push. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're doing so good. You're amazing. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. And stop. Becca was frazzled. She was shaking her head. When the push came again, it was the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good job. You're doing great. Someone has to keep counting, she screamed. Shade looked around. He searched for the perfect person and he gave him the nod. It was Guardian's authoritative voice that lifted. 8, 9, 10, you're done. They want me to read this part. This was a voice for battlefields. This was a voice as hard as stone. A voice people listened to. When the next push came, Guardian began to count like he was taking count of the soldiers he would take to war. His strong, steady voice calmed Becca, gave her precision, gave her focus. He barked out her count to her. Then she did everything in the world. He was born. He had come. The one I swore I would never meet was in our world. He was taken off to the nursery and Becca looked at me. Go home. I'm not leaving this building, Guardian said. I'm here with you until we take that baby home. Shade, she said. Shade stepped forward and took her hand. Love, go home, get some sleep. You can't do anything here. I'm going to go to bed. They're not bringing him back for a while. You have no reason to stay. I have every reason to stay, he said, kissing her. You need to go home, sleep in our bed, and come back when you have had at least 8 hours of sleep, she said. Shade nodded. He kissed her again. He waited until I had given her a sleep aid. Then, as she drifted off, he walked away, having not held his baby once. He stopped to talk to Kay and Patron on his way out. They had come down to witness the birth of our new great-grandchild. Within 24 hours before, they had brought a full bag of McDonald's for me at the time, and I hadn't realized I was starving. I'd eaten 2 Big Macs, 3 large fries, and 3 apple pies. I told them the baby was born. Gave us stats. Mind-boggling big. And I told them Becca had been in labor for 37 and a half hours. We walked to the window of the nursery and they laid him before us. Kay looked at him and cooed. Look at those fingers. You can tell that's a Lynch baby. Assassin stepped forward instantly. That is a Teller baby, he stated. Kay threw her hands up. You're right, it's a Teller. Of course it's a Teller. What else could it be? We all laughed. Assassin walked away steaming, but he's almost always angry. We came back 7 hours later and Becca was eating. When she saw us, she burst into tears. I sent you away before you could hold him, she sobbed, and I knew her emotions were running so hot. Lenore started to suck the emotion out of the room, pulling back all the unneeded energy that would overwhelm Becca and leaving the room calmer and better balanced. Shade went to Becca's side. It's all right. I knew that after such a hard birth, they would take him for a long time. I knew we had moments to hold him. and I wanted you to get that honor, so I waited. I'm here now. Guardian wants to see his son. She squeezed Shade's hand. You first, she said. The first time he was placed in our arms, the room burst into light. The swell of the instruments of the bridge warmed us, and as frogs and crickets played for the Leviathan and her man, Shade stared down at the majesty of his eldest born. We were all nervous, except Assassin. None of us were prepared, except Guardian. None of us had a plan except Shade. Everyone was fucking overwhelmed except Shadow. All of us were at the point of tears except Lenore. All of us were scared except Smiling Jack. None of us knew what to do except Servant. We were all lost. Everyone knew exactly what they were doing. Days and Hymnal and Vigil are at our house. They're staying for a while and they have Shadow in his living room. That birth was insane, Shadow said. Becca is a badass. Watch your mouth. The baby is right there, Hymnal snapped. That's bullshit, Shadow said. Shade tried to push him away, but he was not having it. I'm not going to watch my tongue around my kid. You're going to cuss around that boy? Vigil said. Yeah, probably every day, knowing me. Don't you think that unhealthy? Not at all, Shadow said. Shade stepped forward. I have a plan. Well, let's hear it, Hymnal said. This ought to be good. Tell me why you get to cuss in front of my grandson. Well, I am an adult. Setting a poor example, Hymnal said. False, Shade said. You'll have to learn that some behavior is appropriate at a certain age and not at another. We will use my cussing to teach him that adults get to do things and say things that children do not. When he gets older, I will use it to teach him that in some cases, some behavior is appropriate, and in some cases, it is not. What? Hymnal said. He will learn that it is fine to cuss around his friends, but not his teachers. That's an authority figure, and they deserve respect. He will learn that when he's in the room with a group of guys, I don't give a shit how he talks, but when in mixed company, I demand respectful language. That will carry into everything else. Hymnal crossed her arms, Vigil leaned forward. How do you mean? He asked. Well, if he learns that he can talk a certain way around certain people, but not all people, then we can apply that to how he acts when and where. When he's in a church, he will learn that it's not appropriate to be loud, but in the front yard, it is. He will learn that there will be times when fighting is appropriate, but not all times. Fighting is not appropriate at all, ever, Hymnal said. But she said it low enough that Shade could ignore it. As I curse in my son's life, I will teach him that his behavior needs to change to fit the circumstance, that there are codes of conduct for certain situations. But the most important thing I will teach him is his father's not a hypocrite, that he's always cursed and he always will. It is part of his background. It's part of who his father is, and will not apologize for it to anyone. Vigil leaned back and stared at me for a few seconds. He turned to Hymnal and Shadow leaned forward. How about you? He said, pointing a finger at them. What kind of grandparents are you going to be to my son? What can I expect from you? 2007, we moved to Milwaukee. We lived in a duplex downstairs from our landlord and lady. They became essential pieces of our family. Mentor and Marigold were with us all the time. They taught us so much, and Mentor was a true father to me. He remains an integral part of my life, and I have no idea what I would do without him. One day when Rafe was about 1, he was playing with his toys, crawling around with a car in his hand. Of course, it was a car. Driving it across Morgan's big belly. Morgan is... I almost read you a chapter about Morgan tonight when talking about God's gifts. white boxer, deaf, creature of love. Anyway, right now he has a car on his belly. Rafe, come see daddy, I said. Nothing. Rafe, come see daddy. Come on, Rafe, come see daddy. Get over here, buddy, come see daddy. Becca held her hand out. What do you want? She asked. I want him to come get a hug. He's playing, leave him alone. Let him play. If you have a good reason, then yeah, but if you just want a hug, let him be. This is important. He needs to call when I come in. He needs to come when I call. Rafe, come see daddy. Rafe, come on, buddy. Rafe turned around and looked at me. Come see daddy. Shade held his hands out and Rafe crawled over. When he got to Shade, he got a big hug. Then Shade told him to go play. Becca scoffed, but said nothing. It was 2 years later when the ball rolled out into the street between the two cars. Rafe went running after it, Mentor and Marigold, and Becca all gasped. The car was not far from the ball, and the driver did not see that ball. They for sure did not see the toddler running out to get that ball. Rafe was about to get hit by a car, and no one was close enough to stop. No, 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 Rafe, don't! Erupted from every mouth. Becca's face was drawn in lines of horror. Rafe, come see daddy, Shade said. He said it calmly. He said it firmly. Mid-run, Rafe stopped. He turned on a dime and ran to Shade. Everyone burst into tears. Shade had arrived as a father. From that moment on, Becca trusted his instincts. We had a boy. That boy had a father. He had a few of them. Did you see it?
Yeah, that was really awesome.
Did you see what happened in there?
Yeah, that was really awesome. I have another thing to read to you, but also you have to tell them about the warthogs. So.
Okay. I'll tell you about the warthogs. Me and Becca get together. Everybody's pissed about it. Everybody we know is pissed about it except Summit. Summit was the guy she wanted to be in a relationship with before me, before coming back to me. We had broken up. I was working out my shit. She was working out hers. I'd been in therapy for 4 years with Steven, trying to figure it all out. Living on my own. I'd been working through hell. She'd been putting herself together. Finally, after 3 years, she got a crush on another guy named Summit. He was at her wedding. She was talking to him about me. Anyway, we worked it out. And the day after we got back together on her birthday in 2004. Day after we got back together, we called her parents. They screamed at me. The girl that had wanted to be my wife, master, I don't know. She called screaming at Becca. Then we called Summit and he was super happy for us. But one thing that we did, like almost immediately, was we went to the
we started going on dates. So that was one of our dates that
we started going on dates. And one of the dates we went on was we went to the zoo. While we're at the zoo, we're walking around looking at all these animals. Okay, all the animals. They had an albino alligator, which was pretty cool. And they had warthogs. And I don't know anything about warthogs. If a warthog was sitting in front of me, I could guess that was a warthog, but I wouldn't know if it was a baby warthog or a mama warthog or a whatever warthog. But these warthogs were fucking huge. Maybe the size of my desk is probably right. I have a big desk. It's like 6 foot by like 5 foot. It's huge. These warthogs were massive. They were the biggest things biggest warthogs I've ever seen. You don't know what a warthog is? Think Pumbaa. Okay. Simone is a meerkat. He sits on Pumbaa. It's a reasonable animal. This was insane. I'd never seen anything like it. So we laughed, and that became an analogy for us. We were warthogs. Those warthogs did whatever the fuck they wanted. They were big, they were muscly, they were too big, they were too muscly for their size, and they took shit off no one. And that's what me and Becca became. So when we're headed to Rafe's, we're headed to the hospital on the night she's contracting with Rafe. And we stop at Taco Bell, and I say, we're warthogs. No one tells us what to do. That's what I'm talking about. So one of these days, I'm hoping that I can get a tattoo of a warthog, and I know where I want it. Like right here is a black cuff that I put as a sign of mourning for the dog that saved my life. When she died, I got a black cuff. And right above it, I want a warthog. I want it to be mean and scary looking. And I want it to match whatever warthog goes on Becca's body. But I'm not going to let her pick it. Because it has to be mean and scary looking, and she might want something pretty, and I can't have that. So I'm going to put something, I'm gonna make it, it's gonna be mean and scary looking. And anyway, that's the plan. Get a warthog on the body. Me and wife are warthogs. There's a point in the book where it talks about warthogs. And it says, not many people, when they think about their loved one, think about warthogs romantically. But whenever I think about warthogs, I get all misty-eyed. So anyway, okay. So that's the warthog thing. You may have noticed in there's this really crazy part. I don't remember very well, but I think I blacked out in the middle of the reading, and a lot of different states started moving out, and I don't know exactly what happened. Do you know what happened?
Yeah, you shifted a lot. It was during the part towards the end of the birth where there are those lines about each one and everybody knows what to do except, and no one had a plan except, and how each person had a part. And when you read it, the altar was named in that line, read that line.
Oh, well, that's cool.
I think it's how it went. So you shifted like 5 times or 6 times right there.
Okay.
It was really cool.
Was it cool?
Yeah,
okay.
really.
Accurate?
Yeah. I was surprised. I was surprised that they all did.
Okay. So anyway,
I don't know if you decided to do it that way, but it was cool.
Anyway, that's the eldest. She's got another one she's gonna read to me. So I'm gonna take a break, get another drink. Probably, I don't know, probably get another drink, and maybe smoke a cigarette, and then I'll be right back. Yeah. Okay, so she just read to me the next blog. It's called Sasquatch 2 and Sasquatch Part 2. And it comes out at what time?
It comes out Friday night at 8:45.
Friday night at 8:45. You can read Central Time. You can read Sasquatch 2 of my new blog blast, In the Name of the Father. Okay. This one is called The Younger, and this is about God's next blessing to me. No. Eldest. Then you got the blessing of Mentor and Marigold. We've got the blessing of living in a city with Lioness and Tigress and the Queen of Cats and their sister, the Puma. you've got, there's so many times when God has blessed me um between 2006 and 2009. There's so many times, um but I just couldn't see it. There was no, there was no seeing it. It was all shrouded in a haze of anger. I had a lot of anger when it came to God. Now we're going to read about something that happened when I still had that anger towards God. And if you want to figure out how that anger got worked out, read it in the name of the Father, the blog blast that's coming out. I feel like I'm plugging it. I'm not plugging it. I'm not plugging it. I'm not plugging in the name of the Father. This episode just intertwines so much with in the name of the Father that they're impossible to separate. One thing I said that I was going to do that I didn't was get another drink. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to pause this and get another drink, and then I'll be ready to read this last reading to you, and then we'll call the episode over. Before any of that, though, I would like to point out my wife's gray shirt. It's a gray sweatshirt. As you can see, she's modeling it off very nice for us.
Why am I modeling my gray?
It's perfectly reasonable. My wife is wearing dark pants. Are they?
They're green.
They're dark green.
They're green sweatpants.
Again, extremely reasonable. Everything that you would want from pants, sweatpants, when you're just sitting around the house, working on stuff that, you know, you're just being casual. Now I'd like to point out my wife's ridiculous socks.
Oh, is this all about my socks?
They're purple. They don't work with the green. They have pinkish, lightish, I don't know.
They're sort of light purple. Do they look pink?
Light purple
Spots are two different shades of light purple.
spots on them. And the thing that I like to point out, you might not see, is that polka dot is totally a thing, right? Polka dot is totally a thing. If you've seen polka dot, it's always put on a bold color, and then polka dots are perfectly circled. They're perfect circles all over the thing. I myself have never worn polka dot, that I want to admit. There's possible that there is a polka dot pocket square in there. That's completely reasonable. But that's those socks are not polka dotted, because they're way disfigured. I don't know, it's because they're old, but not a single one of those are perfect square circles.
They're not, yeah, they're not.
So they're not even
It's a
polka
weird
dotted.
shape, yeah.
It's a completely ridiculous sock. And the only thing that is saving it, the only thing that is saving this completely ridiculous sock is that there's two of them. A lot of times people will wear mismatched socks. She wears these together all the time. That's the only saving grace. I'm not making fun of my wife right now because she
It
thinks,
sounds like you are.
because she thinks this is as funny as I think it is.
You know you love my socks. You
Yeah.
know that is your favorite thing about my outfit right now.
Okay, so I'm going to pause this and I'm going to go get my drink. While I'm doing that, I'm going to have my wife go and get the socks that I bought for her a couple of days ago. I bought her socks a couple of days ago. And when you see these socks, you're going to realize how ridiculous this entire conversation is. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to go get a drink. She's going to go get her socks. I'm going to show you her socks. You're going to realize this whole thing was just ridiculousness in order for me to point out the cool, unusual thing that my wife does with foot apparel. I will tell you this. The shoes she wears are cream colored Crocs, and they have a bit of a sparkle to them. So foot apparel with Becca is a thing. I happen to be wearing black steel-toed work shoes. Black steel-toed work shoes, which is just a little bit intense. I want you to take a minute and look at the shoes that you're wearing today. Look at the shoes you're wearing today. You might as well, because I'm making a whole thing out of this. So ask yourself, like I come from a working class family, and I'm a really intense person. Carry knives with me everywhere. Steel-toed makes a lot of sense for me. These shoes, although that's not why I bought them, these shoes are very conductive of my my personality. So look at your shoes. I bet you're wearing cool shoes. I bet you're wearing cool shoes that in some way talk about who you are. Maybe your socks do. Have something to do with your personality. I think we can hide ourselves in the way we dress, in the hats we wear, even the jewelry we wear. I have my 13 ring on. I have my cross steel ring on that's massive. I have another 13 with a skull. This is H's skull ring and my wedding ring. I got this bracelet today, and I got my steel chain bracelet, which is a story on itself. I'm wearing my cross necklace, which I rarely wear. This cross ring is my y'all motherfuckers need Jesus ring. I've always pictured like some asshole being an asshole and me punching him in the forehead with this steel cross ring and saying, y'all motherfuckers need Jesus. And which is a fairly popular saying. Basically, our jewelry can sometimes make us who we are or talk about who we are. But I was with a woman once who was wearing her diamonds and she was wearing all her jewelry. And I commented on it and she says, I have to be, and she named her name off today. And I realized that she had to wear these rings because the rest of the public expected her to. In order to keep up the image that she was supposed to have, she had to wear those diamonds. I don't know if she would have chosen to wear them. the shirt, the vest, the pocket square, the jewelry, the hat, all of it. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's who I want you to think is me. But if you all the way down to the shoes, for some reason I'm talking about foot apparel today. I have no idea why. If you go all the way down to the shoes, you go all the way down to the socks, hey, I feel as though you have a tendency to find the person. When you boil my wife all the way down, what you find is purple socks with circles that are not polka dots. And what you find with me is black socks, which nobody is surprised to hear, and black work shoes with steel toes. Okay, so I said I was gonna get a drink. You were supposed to do something too. What were you
I'm
gonna
gonna
do?
get the new socks that you bought for me just a couple days.
You're gonna get the new socks. And we're let in the dogs because they ended up being trapped outside. And Jordi right now in the background is barking a lot. You probably haven't heard it, but he's got a lot to say about being left outside. Then I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna read the younger. Probably somewhere in there, she's gonna interrupt and have me listen to what she's been working on in there. We will get back to the younger. I don't understand my whole shoes and socks outburst that I just had. Don't understand why that became a thing. I think that has little or nothing to do with God, but maybe I was supposed to say it. The thing is, you never know when the tiniest thing that you say or you're preparing to say is supposed to be heard by somebody. So maybe somebody needed to hear what I just said. Or maybe I just wanted to point out my wife's cool socks. I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna be gone. I'm gonna do the thing, and you won't miss me. Okay, so I'm back. I'm gonna read the younger. But she's gonna show you the socks.
Right now?
Yeah, right now. You can't see what it says. They say Oreos. Oreo. Those are Oreo socks.
They're blue and white and black and blue.
Blue and white and black and blue. Anyway, I bought them for her. I found them. We went to a shop. We went to a place in Phillipsburg, Missouri, called Redmond's, and it's got this completely ridiculous sign visible from the highway. I'm gonna try to find it and put it right here. Hope I can find it. Hope you're looking at it now. Anyway, Redmond's has a big candy store, and you can find anything there. Stuff you can't ever find anymore. Old stuff that has been, I don't want to say discontinued, but I guess they're still making it, but it's not popular enough to be in any stores. I got a Charleston Chew there. Anyway, it's an amazing store. And in the same parking lot, Redmond's also has what they call the largest gift store in the world. I don't know, haven't been all over the world. And I don't frequent gift shops, but this one was pretty big. I went looking for a knife. Figured gift shop might have a knife. They didn't have a knife. However, they did have those socks. And as soon as I saw them, I was like, I'm buying this for my wife. I don't know if she got herself anything else or if the socks is all she walked out with.
Yeah, I
but
got that mug about the lake. That said,
Oh, yeah.
"Jump in the lake."
she's got a mug that says, what does it say? Jump in the
It
lake?
says, "Go jump in the lake."
Go jump in the lake, Missouri. Which makes sense because her family always had a lake house. And because when you look over my shoulder, you see a very pleasant looking, cute woman. When I look over my shoulder, I see the Leviathan of Devil's Elbow. So go jump in the lake made sense to me. Anyway, those are her socks. I think she's gonna leave them there.
Making my feet nice and warm. I have another thing to read you. Do you want me to read you this next thing?
Yeah, she's already cleaned up another one. So I'm going to pause this and yeah, she's gonna read me the next piece. When does this one come out?
Okay, this one is gonna come out Friday night. I think it's at 11.
11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night. This blog is going to come out. She's going to read it to me. I'm going to see if there's anything that we need to change about it. I'm going to pick a picture for it, show it to you, and then we'll get to the younger. It's starting to get to where the younger has a lot of anticipation behind it. So, okay. So she read it to me. It's ready to go. She's placing the picture that I chose as we speak. And I'm going to show it to you. It is right here, right now. And the chapter is called The Rise of Rose. Rose is my mother. So take that picture and Rise of Rose and do your best to try to imagine what that chapter is about. I would cross my arms and sit here and wait for you to do it, but we don't have that kind of time. So I'm just going to read to you the younger. The younger, 2009. 10 months earlier, we looked at Rafe playing on the floor in our living room, and Becca had looked at me with a sad look on her face and motioned to him. He looks lonely, she said. I looked at him, and in that moment, she was right. He did look lonely. I had known he would. When we brought Rafe home from the hospital, he had filled up our lives. But as we moved to Milwaukee and our new life had begun, it became clearer and clearer that we were not complete. There was a part of the team missing. We were down a man, and we'd begun to prepare ourselves for doing it again. The morning sickness, the night sickness, the food runs and the hormone tears, the late nights and the early mornings. But more than anything, I was ready again for the joy. With Rafe had come a lot of exhaustion and fear, but all of that had been dwarfed by the joy he had given me. I was ready for more. We started trying to get pregnant right away, and we've always been good at this part. It was very soon when we had our news, the last piece was on its way. Our family was about to be complete. We went to the doctor for a late term checkup. We were at the point where we were coming for our checkups every week. And by the midpoint of this one, the doctor began to talk options. See, in Wraith's birth, Becca's blood pressure had spiked, and they'd been forced to put her on a drug to treat that. The drug was called
magnesium sulfate, I think. It was magnesium something.
Magnesium sulfate, magnesium something. Well, during this visit, we saw that her blood pressure was rising again, and the doctor wanted to induce. She said that she would just get us in the bed and see what happened. A little nudge she would give us, and we would see what came of it. Before they induced, the first of the contractions began. They ended up breaking her water, but by then we knew this was it. This was a different experience altogether. Rafe had come with 18 hours of pain, then hours of sitting in a dark room as Becca slept and slowly made progress in labor. Tobin was a different force all at once. For the first few hours, she would feel the contractions hard, but they were short. She was progressing well, but the pain was intense. We had another doula, a bold woman we will call Valkyrie. She was powerful and funny, and she loved what she did. She had a bit of a crass side. I'd love to tell you the story of what she thought. We were at the point where, in the pregnancy, where we were ready for Becca to have the contractions and get started. And this particular doula, this isn't written in the book, this is just me vamping. This particular doula had told us that there was a specific thing that had a tendency to cause childbirth to begin, as a spike to start childbirth. And those of you who know, if you know a doula, you know what that thing is. If not, I will leave it at. She was powerful and funny, and she loved what she did. She had a bit of a crass side, but that is why we loved her. And just like Cheryl, we had told her about the altars and prepared her for their coming. We told her that, just like Rafe, I would be shifting in and out of different altars all through the birth, so we needed her to concentrate on Becca. Valkyrie was ready, and she sat with us, gave Becca different positions, and we did all the things and all the things we needed her to. When the time came to push, things got hard again. They pulled her out of the bed and put her on a rolling bed. They brought her out into the middle of the room, and the pushing began. On one side of the bed was Valkyrie, holding Becca's hand and speaking encouraging words. The doctor stood at the foot of the bed doing her job, and Shade stood beside Becca, his hand in hers, helping her with her breathing. When the time to push came, we trusted Guardian's voice to call out the power in Becca. She responded, and as she had with Rafe, and everything was fine. When Tobin's head emerged, things got scary. I'm going to ask Guardian to come out and read this. He's not going to like reading this. I'm going to ask him to come out and read this. When Tobin's head emerged, things got scary. Alchemy's head and Becca slumped. His body was still inside her. She did not give the last push, and his neck was being squeezed. You need to push one more time for me, the doctor said. Becca sighed and looked up at the ceiling. One more push. Come on, give me one more, the doctor said. Push, Becca, Valkyrie said. One more big one. Shade shook Becca's hand. Come on, baby. You have one more push to go. The doctor was holding Becca open so that she did not crush Tobin's throat, and she looked up at me frantic. She has to push right now. You can't stay like this. But birthing the head had been such a drain on her that in her mind she was done. Becca had given up. She was at rest. Shade pulled forward and shoved me out. I looked down at Becca, and with the voice of a field commander, I said, one more push. Give it to me. Right now. The room shook with the sternness of that command. She looked up at me. She looked at Tobin, and she grunted one more time with one mighty push. Tobin was in the world. Did he read it?
Yeah.
Okay. As soon as the birth was done, they walked off with Tobin, and Shade stumbled back. He pressed his back to the wall and fought for breath. They sewed Becca up, and she sat up in bed. She looked at them as if nothing had just happened, and she said, food, now. They handed her the menu, and she began sorting through it. They gave Tobin the Shade. and I will tell you what he saw. Yeah, they handed me this little guy, and I looked at him and smiled. He has red hair, I said. That is blood. He still has blood in his hair, a nurse said. It's red. I looked up at Becca. His hair is red. She looked at me from across the room. How does he look? I opened my mouth to say perfect when I was shoved aside, and Teth burst forward. I'm going to let him tell you what he saw. Oh, shit. Do you think he'll come out and read this? We're going to see if we can get Teth to read this. He was big like the sun, big like the bull tries to be, big like the sweep of the moon. He was wild. I felt his heart in my fist as I gripped him. He was testing me. He was roaring. This beast had yet to cry, but within him I could sense a howl like my own. I wept. Then I left. Then came Shadow. I'll let him tell you what he saw. This little fucker had some cheeks, goddamn. They took up his whole face. They were huge. I knew instantly that Becca had gotten her wish. Look at her cheeks. Show me. Show me. Ah, side. Look to the side. Cheek. Look to the other side. Cheek. As Rafe grew, we were looking more and more like us. The hair, the smile, the face. There were a picture upstairs on our wall of me when I was a little fucker. And when Rafe saw it for the first time, his face screwed up. And I said, I don't remember that robe. This little dude was sure he was looking at a picture of himself. Well, Becca wanted one that looked like her. And with those cheeks, man, there was no denying this was her fucking kid. Can I see him? She asked. I carried him over and she looked at him. As I handed him to her, she saw it immediately. You do look like me. She burst into tears and stared down at our little badass and our new little badass. She made me make her this promise, but I was gone. I think it was Assassin she was talking to by then. I'll let him tell you what they agreed to. It was not Assassin she was talking to, it was me. It was Guardian. She looked at me, and with stern resolve, she stated, I never want to do this again. We're done. Agreed, I said. If I ever say I want to have another kid, get me a pup. Get me a puppy. She did at one point get to the point where Tobin was old enough. He didn't need constant attention. She started talking about how she needed something to care for. Nobody was really listening. That is to say that we were distracted by watching a television show. And she goes, do you think we should get a puppy or do you think we should have another baby? Whoever came out at the time was like, let's get a puppy. I don't know. I think it was Shade. He was trying to make a puppy sound exciting, so she didn't want another kid. Anyway, done, I said with a nod. I asked her if she was okay. She said she was hungry and that she ordered a cheeseburger. I grabbed the nearest nurse. Where is her burger? I asked. We had set the order to the kitchen and they will have it up here soon, the woman said, nodding. No, Guardian said. This woman just went through labor. She brought that baby, he pointed at his son, into this world with a grunt and a scream, and she is hungry. Soon is not enough. I hope you can understand that. I'm sure she won't have to wait for. Ma'am, with as much respect as I can muster, I'm going to ask you to please go to the kitchen and get my wife some food. The very first thing she did when she was done giving birth to a child was pick up a menu. I placed a gentle hand on the woman's shoulder. She did not ask to see her baby. She asked for a menu. I will ask you this. Have you ever given birth? The woman's face changed. I will check on the meal for you. You are appreciated, I said. When I looked at Becca again, she was fine. I stepped aside when she told us to call her parents. I don't talk to our mother. I'm pretty sure Shade made that call. I knew what I was getting the moment I picked up the phone. There had been a bit of a struggle going on here. When we talked about having children, we made a deal. Becca was going to pick all the girl names, and I would name the boys. Rafe was named without issue, but Tobin was a bit of a thing. My decision was to name him Tobin Andre Teller, the middle name being the proper name that we have given Guardian. We wanted to name this child after Guardian, the way that we had named Rafe after me, Corey. The only issue came when Becca was talking to her mother about it, and her mother spoke up. Wouldn't it be great if we named him Tobin Vigil Teller? She said. Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh my God, I'm in love with it. Isn't it perfect? Now, Tobin Vigil Teller is pretty cool. The problem is, in this book, we're using nicknames. So Vigil is not actually Vigil, it's an actual normal name. So this isn't a cooler name. Oh, that would be so beautiful. Oh my God, I'm in love with it. Isn't it perfect? It's a pretty name, Becca had said, but I don't pick the name. That is for Jesse to do. And I'm pretty sure he said on Tobin Andre Teller. When I woke up that afternoon, I was hit with it. Isn't Tobin Vigil so beautiful? Hymnal said. That is such an amazing name. You have to go with Tobin Vigil. The boy's name will be Tobin Andre. I've already decided. She waved it off. Well, don't decide now. Just think about it and wait until you see him and let us know then what you think. I've made my mind up, I said. Just wait until you see him. She looked at Becca. He can wait until he sees him, can he? I would not let that question be answered by Becca. Would not let him use Becca as leverage, so I agreed. I would not tell his name until I had seen my son. But I knew that Tobin's name was Tobin Andre Teller. I picked up the phone and she answered on the first ring. You have a new grandson, I told her. And what is his name? His name is Tobin Andre Teller, I said. I don't remember anything after that because when I said that, out came Assassin. I stepped forward ready for a fight. I had 6 words that I was going to say to her if she complained about the name Shade had chosen for our son. 6 words. She did not make me say them. Okay, that is fine. So she said, how is Becca? Then I was gone. Hymnal and I have never really seen eye to eye. She doesn't understand why I'm necessary. I think to her Christian heart has trouble coming to terms with the murderer inside her son-in-law. I didn't want to taint the experience she was having, so I stepped away. Out came Shadow. He always loves to shit on perfect moments. I did not shit on this perfect moment. Hymno asked how Becca was. I was very polite, told her Becca was a badass. She could not be stopped. She was a fucking juggernaut. After I said that, I pulled back. I was done. My fun was had. I'd worked a curse word or two into the conversation, but it was not for her. I was not shitting on Hymnal. This moment was not about Hymnal. I was saying it so that Becca could hear me say it. I was looking her in the eye when I said it. I wanted Becca to know that I thought she was a fucking badass juggernaut. She needed to hear that more than Hymnal needed to hear pristine words spoken by a golden tongue. So my deed done, I winked at Becca as her mother asked if she could talk to her. I handed things over to Shade and I took off. Hospitals. make me nervous. I handed the phone to Becca, and she talked to her mother for about 2 minutes before Guardian's favorite nurse walked in with Becca's dinner, maybe breakfast. I took the phone and talked to him, but as the first words were being spoken, Guardian came out real fast, just real fast. I don't know why I have to do this. I pressed the phone to my chest and I tapped the nurse on the shoulder. Thank you so much for your service. It will not be forgotten. Which I guess it will not be forgotten because here it is in this book. Maybe this nurse will read this book and she'll remember this crazy day. Most likely she's been at so many births. She won't know this one is special. But I do want to say, I was politely aggressive to this nurse. And I let her know that I appreciated her after she got dinner from my wife. I hope another part doesn't show up with me. I don't like reading for people. Back on that phone, I talked to Himmel about the arrangements, when she would be flying in, if she would need to pick her up. We coordinated the entire thing, and then I let her go. By the time I was done, Becca was done with her meal. She had inhaled the burger and the fries. We asked her if she wanted more. I think it was Guardian who asked her. She said she was fine. We stayed in the afterglow of the birth until the weight of sleep dropped on her. Then she told me to go home, get some sleep, come back strong. I obeyed. Valkyrie gave me a ride home. When I got home, I wrote a note for Mentor, begging him to wake me up in 8 hours and please take me to the hospital. I dropped into bed and fell asleep instantly. When Mentor broke us up, he infuriated Assassin. I'll step aside and let him rant a bit. That is a great man. Mentor is a friend, and if I could love a person outside of this family, I'm sure he would be on that short list. However, he enraged me when he woke me up. I got out of bed. I let them dress me. I stepped out ready to tell him how I felt, but Shadow had already stepped forward. He did not want me to yell at Mentor for waking us up 10 minutes early. Oh man, we got to tell the story about the okay. Yeah, me and Mentor jumped into his fucking truck and I asked him to stop and get a thick burger from Hardee's on the way to the hospital. Assassin always tells me those things have more than 1,000 calories, but fuck it if they're not so good that they're worth the wait. Did you ever see what I think here? The pun there, worth the wait? Okay. I think that after this book is done, we're going to go have one. We will see. I will tell you that fucking story. I will tell you that story very quickly at the end of this. Ask me about the thick burger here in a minute, because, you know, fuck Guardian. Mentor was excited. Him and Marigold had been talking about the labor and the birth all fucking day. Shade had not only asked me if his note for the ride and help getting up, but had also given a brief account of the birth. Mentor had lots of questions, and I answered them all. I ate Shadow's burger, which he's still pissed about. Then we got back to the hospital. Now that is about the gist of it, but I want to let Artist tell you what he saw the next day when Mentor and Marigold came to visit. It's kind of breathtaking, and it is totally insane. This is a good place to stop. I'm going to stop. I'm going to have a bathroom break, and maybe Becca's got another post for me to read. I don't know. But I'm going to take a break, and then I'll come back and let Artist read this for you. And then that'll be the end of the episode. Okay, she read the thing to me. And it's called Camelot 2. And here is the picture I am placing for it. It is right here. And if you can look at that picture, think about Camelot 2 and know what it's about, then yeah, consider therapy. Okay. Shay just read. Now that is about the gist of it, but I want to let Artist tell you what he saw the next day when Mentor and Marigold came to visit. And it's kind of breathtaking, and it is totally insane. So now it's my turn to read. I was at the birth. I had winged beasts flying around my head. I heard voices on the wind from the world in awe of his might. I saw colors no man or woman has ever seen before. And over all of it, the blare of trumpets as the arrival of the final stone was in place. But none of that is what matters. What I want to talk about is the next day, when Rafe was brought to meet his younger brother. I will not call Tobin his baby brother. Co flew around the corner before Rafe got here. Her green hair was a flurry around her plump face, and she laughed as she entered the room. He's so excited, she said. Co is the name of my traveler friend, the green one with the green hair. Since Rafe was born, she'd begun to follow him everywhere. She hounded his steps and had quite fallen in love with him. She fluttered to my side as Rafe walked in, and she stopped at my shoulder. Is he here yet? She asked. We had talked at length about the one who would follow Tobin, and though I had been against it, Co was right. She was right from the start. There was one soul and only one who would work for this young man. As Rafe walked around the corner, he slowed way down. He almost stopped, and he looked scared. He had been looking forward to meeting his brother for so long, but now the moment had come, and he was nervous. Co fluttered to his side and gave him a bit of a nudge. He giggled to the thing she whispered at him, and he came forward. Marigold picked him up and set him on the bed before Becca. Becca held Tobin where Rafe could see him. My mentor looked at Shade and smiled. Get in there. Let me get a picture, he said. Shade sat on a stool on the far side of the bed, and they all gathered together. I stood back with Co. What will he look like? I asked. His mother. Look at those cheeks. They're like little butt cheeks on his sweet little face, Co said. Who will he take after? I asked. His father, Co said. He will need his mother more than Rafe, just as his father before him. Tobin will only be happy when serving and entertaining others. He is servant son through and through. Teth calls him the might, I said. Oh, yes, this one is very strong. He is mighty, beast-like in his intensity. He has Teth's heart for sure. She smacked me with her staff. Co is so small that her staff is a daffodil. She smacked me with it and she laughed. He's talented like you, though. He's a creator. I wept. When I looked up, I saw the wolf mother standing beside Becca. Her snout snorted at me, her strong arm resting around Becca's shoulders. She wore her hair in braids. Her dress was blue and silk, made of scarves. She carried the knife I had given her. She looked stern, but when did she not? Cackle the piper finally arrived a few minutes later. His horns had been polished, his leg hair combed, his hooves clicked on the linoleum as he walked, and he pulled at the coat that Wolf Mother had made him wear. She would not have him come to see Tobin the first time naked. She said he would get plenty of shirtless time with the boy. He walked around the bed to the crib on wheels. This is before the jaundice had set in bad, and they put Tobin under the lights. Cackle looked at Tobin and grinned. He poked him with a hairy finger, and Tobin giggled. His body didn't, but he did. I was doing the rewrite of this chapter when I took a break to get some air. I walked out into the driveway, and out came Artist. He scowled when he looked up to see Cackle the Piper standing at the end of the driveway in the blue coat that Wolf Mother had made for him. Artist looked at him and pointed, "Blue Poppy?" Cackle laughed. Finally figured it out, huh? See, when Tobin was about 4, there was a week when he stopped listening to his father at all. When Adam told him to do something, Tobin would look to his right or to his left for a breath. He would look back and say, "Blue Poppy says no. Blue Poppy says not to." For a week, Adam struggled with the figure that Tobin called Blue Poppy. Steve Cackle was tired of Adam. Artist I had not shifted out in years, and Cackle was sick of watching one altar run our entire life. He knew that his friend Smear, Lord of Ire, had worked hard for our life, and all of it had been taken away. We'll get to that. Smear and Cackle talked at the end of the driveway for a while before I came back into work. It had been a while since the two of them had talked. They laughed, and the Piper told me a few crass jokes. Then Cackle walked behind a tree, and he was gone. I've seen him a couple of times since. Tobin has a friend in the book he's referred to as Tiger Cub. When Tobin and Tiger Cub get together, it's intense. Tiger Cub has a way of reaching into Tobin, of tapping into Tobin, or maybe Tobin drives Tiger Cub insane. I don't know. All I know is that when the two of them get together, they become their best form. They set all of it aside, and they roar, and they create, and they run, and with spears they shout, and they call out to the most creative parts of each other, and together they glow. Tobin and Tiger Cub were made, hammered on the forge of God to be friends. They were both cooled at the same time, dipped into water at the same time, back in the fire at the same time, hammered at the same time. They are matching weapons. If you want to say they were made to be weapons, they're matching pieces of art. If you want to say they were made to be pieces of art, Tobin and Tiger Cub, when they start to run and they start to shout, and the spears are held in the air, and the war paint is on their bodies, I can hear the Piper in the background playing their war song. So that's what I'll give you. God is in there. God is in the mystical and the magical. God is in the hard facts. God is in the way that sword swung on my side on my wedding day. God is in every piece of Rice Krispie in that castle. God is in the fact that we opened our wedding presents at the lake house in front of everybody. Because if we hadn't, then that family would not have seen that so many people were celebrating me and Becca's union. So many people outside of the family had come to celebrate me and Becca's union and had left offerings at the altar of me and Becca's love. So as much as we wanted to open those presents at our home, God is in the fact that we didn't. God is always in the sleep of the victorious. God was moving through Summit when he stood up at our wedding and the karaoke, and he sang My Way. Some will say My Way was a Frank Sinatra song, and they will be 100% accurate there. Some will say that My Way was only truly understood when it was sang by Sid Vicious. And those people are right too. Try to grab a hold of art one day. Try to wrap your mind around it. Try to clench it in your fist. You're going to find it seeping through your fingers. You're going to find that it stains your hands and your fingers for the rest of your life. And you're going to find that it whips around in the air around you. But I know art when I saw it. And when Summit stood up and sang My Way, I saw true beauty, because Summit is many beautiful things, but one of those is not a singer. Everything was off key. Everything was wrong. And he knew it. He knew he couldn't sing when he got up to sing it. He stood there with his microphone in his hand and he sang in front of everybody and he sang My Way. I hope you can taste the smoke on the air of that burning art. When I lifted the roof off of the room that my son was born in, I looked up at the sky and I wasn't in it. Roof rips off the building, I'm always in it. The 80-foot tall man in black, furry man in black with tiger striped wings. But this time when I ripped the roof off the building, I wasn't in it. All that was there was a diamonds-filled sky and the face of God. In the darkness. God built every single one of my eagle states, my altars. He built every single one to do the job of raising Rafe. So we can use that map to raise Tobin. And all of us were ready and none of us were prepared that is God. God it is in this ring right here. The most aggressive sign of Christ I've ever seen. God is in the woman back there who still has a pair of socks laying on her feet, which is kind of ridiculous. God's in the pocket square. God's in the fact that I bought this shirt today, or otherwise I would have done an episode about God in a dark gray t-shirt. God is in what you're going to do right after this video. Whatever he's leading you to do it. There's an epic battle that is going on right now on my blog between all of us and between the Lord. You're going to see it today. It starts at 2. I want you to watch my battle with God. I want you to watch where everything goes wrong and where everything becomes right. And I want you to find the meandering path. Sometimes you need a machete to hack through, and sometimes it's a 4-lane highway. And I want you to look at all of it, and I want you to land somewhere. And wherever you land, you're going to find me. I'll be standing on that path. I can't walk it with you. I can just tell you the story of me and my Creator. I can tell you the story of me and my Creator, and I can hand you a paper cup with water when they do 5Ks, 10Ks, when they do half marathons and marathons, when they do those insane runs. A lot of times there'll be people, volunteers, that just have small paper cups with water that meet up with the runners, and the runners grab them and slam them and keep running. They drop the paper cup on the ground and they keep running. I can't run this race for you. I can show you what I ran. I can hand you a small paper cup with water. And I can say to you this. I've never been better than after I ran my race with the Lord. And it's never been harder than after I ran my race with the Lord. Because now I understand. And with that understanding comes responsibility. However, with that understanding comes peace. I'm looking right now at a desk plaque. Do you know what I'm talking about? You've seen it in movies. You go, the guy goes before his boss, and his boss's name is written on a desk plaque sitting in front of him. His boss's name and his boss's title. I've always thought it was quite arrogant. Right now, under the monitor of my screen, I see a desk plaque that my wife made me buy. She made me buy it. And it says talented motherfucker. It says talented motherfucker. I think the talented part was written by God. I think the motherfucker part was written by my relationship with God. God wrote the motherfucker part so that I would know that he was talking to me. Whatever relationship you have with God is hand-tailored. He has found a way to talk to you and only you. I happen to be his talented motherfucker. You might be anything else, but he's got a name for you. He's got a path for you. So I guess from God's talented motherfucker to you, I will say, run your race. Hopefully my video and my blog blast might be a glass of water in a paper cup. When you slam it and you drop it on the ground and you run on, know that I'll be the one who picks it up. If you need me to clean up after you, I will. Now, Benny has said that he wants to dance with my wife tonight. Benny has recreated dancing. And so he wants to dance with my wife tonight, which we're all going to get out of the way so that he can do that. I can guarantee you with 35% guarantee you that Benny will choose Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Stapleton. I say 35%, and that's a pretty high number because Benny is completely unpredictable. And what he wants to say to his wife might not be in Tennessee Whiskey tonight. Benny is going to dance with my wife, and I wish that you could see it. It's an expression of love that can't be duplicated by anybody else. But should it be? Should my expression of love to her, Benny's expression of love to her, be duplicated by anybody else? That answer is no. I'm gonna go. You're done seeing the artist for the day. I'm going to let Benny be with his wife. And I'm going to let you hear Benny's work as you walk your way out of my office. Benny's bass line will show you to the door. Like Holland Wolf, you know. Maybe someday I'll tell you why.